Hello, everyone. My name is Hany Rizk. I'm a Lebanese based in Berlin. I'm an experience strategist, and I'm the founder of No BS Innovation Studio. Today, I would like to talk to you about innovation, about design sprints, and how I tackle these particular topics in my business, No BS. To start, I will be sharing my screen so you can see my slides, and you will see my face in a corner somewhere. Bear with me, please. I'm trying to figure this out as I go, but I hope that everybody's having a great day so far, and I hope that everybody is safe, most importantly, during these hard times. I shall start by sharing my slide screens, and we'll take it from there. So, do this. Perfect. Yes, as mentioned, the topic or the title for today's talk is the No BS Guide to Innovation. We all know that innovation is a very big buzzword. Today, it's used a lot. We encounter it on multiple occasions every single day. What I would like to do today is try to dig deeper into this and try to understand what really lies at the essence of innovation and how we could really leverage that in our businesses. Um, my personal handle and my business handle are on the screen. As you can see, I'm Hany Rizk underscore or NoBS Studio. Instagram, Twitter, and of course, LinkedIn or Medium are under the proper names. To start out, I would like to typically ask this, or I do typically ask this to a live audience. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about this. So, how have we been unlocking our cars for the past whatever number of years, maybe for the last 100 years or so? Uh, if you think of it, typically it's a very simple process. We start by walking up to our car. You take out your key from the car, from your pocket, sorry, and then you physically open the car door with your key. So around 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, when mobile apps started coming around and becoming a big thing in the industry, one of the world's leading car companies, I will not name it for now, decided to try to bring this experience to the phone, to the mobile phone, and wanted to create a digital form of the key. And their approach to do it was as follows, or the process for using this app was as follows. You walk up to your car, you pull out your smartphone, you wake up the phone, you unlock it, and then you exit your last opened app. You exit the last open group of apps. You swipe through a sea of icons. You search for the app that you're looking for. You tap on it. Then you wait for it to load and you try to find the unlock action. And then you make a guess with the menu and you tap control. You try to figure out which button you're dealing with. And then you tap on it. And then you slide a slider to unlock your car, to give the action or the prompt to unlock the car. And then you still have to physically open the car door. So this is probably real footage of the innovation manager at that company. So this makes you wonder, we went from having three simple steps to open a car to going to 13. And all this for the purpose of digitalization or innovation. But is this really what innovation is all about? Is it just about building another app and putting it out there to not necessarily simplify a process that we already have? Which brings me to my second point. This is a statement that we all hear quite often in our domain: is that there is an app for that. The market is saturated. There's an app for almost everything you might think of. And you start realizing that some of our brightest minds in this world are, wasting their time working on optimizing ads, let's say, for a certain social network, or working on apps that are redundant in the sense that they're solving a solution that another company solves. And at the same time, you could be thinking about these talents and these brains being leveraged for greater problems like solving disasters in the world, like doing research on cancer or on viruses or on epidemics and the like. Um, all of this together, or maybe to give myself a quick background for you guys to realize where this is all coming from. So I have been in UX for the past 10 years, I would say, 10 to 12. My last 8 years have been in Berlin, Germany, where the majority of those have been in startups. So I have been leading UX teams, design teams, product teams, mobile teams at a bunch of different startups. I did co-found my own startup back in 2013 and 14 called So Much More, which was a holistic or a platform for holistic lifestyle. So yoga, meditation, Pilates, and the likes. And this startup, So Much More was the name, later went on to be acquired by a bigger startup called Urban Sports Club. I have spent a couple of years in corporate at Volkswagen, at the big car company, working in UX strategy and mobility innovation, mostly for electric cars and digital mobility services. And I have, throughout my career, experienced working with and witnessing the work of agencies, of consultancies, and of, single or individual consultants, so to say. And I have made great experiences. I have learned a lot, but at the same time, I've also noticed a lot of things that make you wonder about, how right is this thing that we're doing. So one of the first things I can see, or I did see in the startup world, was the hype. You have really smart people working on ideas that are great, but you also have teams that fall in love with their ideas too much that they lose sight of the problem that they're trying to solve, and rather just try to focus on building the solution that they have in mind. Um, you see big companies that have a lot of money that could be leveraged for great projects, but instead they get wasted on long projects that take just a whole lot of time, that move very slowly, and that processes that don't really get you to results quickly, long meetings. I think many of us have experienced that. And finally, when it comes to agencies or consultancies or individuals, a lot of the business is rotating around spending more time on the project. So instead of focusing on delivering valuable results, the focus is rather directed towards how can we take more time on this project so we can make more money from it. So as a result of all of that, I came to realize that there's just too much BS out there. There are too many challenges for us to solve, and there's very little time. And I think what we're witnessing today with the outbreak of coronavirus is a great example. So for this particular reason, I decided, that we should start focusing our work on something that truly matters, on solving real challenges and solving real problems that are facing our world, and that actually provide, like working on solutions that provide real value to our world. So because of that, I decided to start No BS, an innovation studio. Yes, I had to come clean with my mom a couple months ago and tell her that the BS actually stands for bullshit. So it's No Bullshit Innovation Studio. And what we actually do there is help companies ideate and validate new solutions. So we help them kick off new ideas, new projects. We help them solve real challenges that they face or that this world faces. We help them create meaningful products and services, and at the same time, and most importantly, deliver very mindful experiences for the users and for the customers. Some of the companies that we have worked with over the past couple of years, they go from large companies like Volkswagen, like SAP, Siemens, DB, Deutsche Bahn, which is Germany's largest, or like Germany's main rail network operator, Saab, the car company, Adobe, Delivery Hero, Roche, the pharma company. Recently, we've done a project for the United Nations Global Compact, which is directed towards sustainability. And of course, we are worked with smaller companies and startups like Cara, which is a very big or a very famous digestive health startup in Berlin. There's Mush Labs, which is a biotech startup that is working on the future of food by creating products out of mushrooms that are done in a very sustainable way in labs, and a bunch of other companies that I might get to later in some of the case studies that I will show. To start out, like we mentioned earlier, innovation is one of those big buzzwords, and there are plenty of definitions for it. I don't think we can really limit it to one definition, but I would like to share mine, or the one that I find the most attractive or the most accurate, so to say, for myself, which says that innovation is the process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems. The reason I like this is that if we are not creating value, then is it really an innovation, or is it just, could it be art? Could it be like we're doing something that is nice but doesn't really create value? If it's not novel, if it's not creating something new, then it's maybe just an optimization. It's not exactly an innovation. And if you're not solving a meaningful problem, then what's the point? Why are we wasting our time and our energy and our money on building something big that does not really solve the problem? Bringing me to my second point, which is the innovation could be divided into two types. One is evolutionary, which is brought about by incremental advances in technology or processes, meaning that an innovation just doesn't, or like one that doesn't just come out of the blue, but rather comes from iterations, comes from incremental advances in what we've already had. And then you have revolutionary innovations, which are disruptive and new and just suddenly come out and create a new market for themselves, and just are what people usually refer to as innovations. So when we think of the first iPhone, many people assume that this is a revolutionary innovation. In a sense, of course it is. It was something big in the market. It changed the world after it. But when you think of the history behind it and the process behind it, the iPhone was not something that was created out of the blue, and this is something very, very, very traditional of Apple in that sense. Is that what they typically do is that they look at technologies that are already out there. They look at new technologies, new designs, new concepts and ideas, but they observe them in the market for a while. They let other companies experiment and fail with them. But at the same time, they observe them, they do their research, they figure out how to optimize them and how to bring them all together. So touchscreens, for example, was not new. This was something that existed before Apple released their first iPhone. Same thing for smartphones, same thing for cameras in phones, for example. But what Apple did was really research and observe how things are in the market, and then perfect them in a way that when they brought them all together at the right moment, this was the innovation in itself, not the invention. Which brings me to my following point, is that execution, according to popular belief, is much more important than ideas. Ideas are great, but everybody has an idea. We, or all of us, I'm pretty sure we've all fallen victim to this one thing, is how many times have you thought about, or you see a particular product go live, or startup go live, or service go live, and say, hey, I actually had that idea. If I only did it earlier. Yeah, we all have had that, and everybody can say that. And ideas, as they say, are a dime a dozen, and execution is actually where the money is and where the opportunity is. To double down on this point, there's this one chart that I like, which sort of tries to map ideas with execution, or like the value of ideas versus execution. These, of course, are numbers. I will try to move my face so you can see the proper number here. These numbers really do not signify any real value, but this is just a nice matrix to look at how good an idea is, from awful to brilliant, with a value next to it, and how good the execution of this idea is, from none, meaning this was not executed at all, to this was executed brilliantly. And it's just a nice way to visualize how big an innovation is, or how big the value of an innovation is, based on the quality of the idea and the quality of the execution. So if you think of it, let's think about the iPhone, for example. As an idea, this would have been a nice exercise to do collaboratively, but unfortunately we can't over video. As an idea, the first iPhone would be ranked as, was it a brilliant idea? Was it a great idea? Was it a good idea? Let's say it was good to great. Let's say it's great. 15, we give it 15 points. And if we think of the execution behind it, it was quite well done, right? When you think of the features that were there were not that many, and App Store didn't even exist back then. So it was a great execution, let's say, with a great idea. That would sum it up to 15 million. 50 million means nothing, but it's just a nice way to put things at a scale. If you think of Uber, for example, the idea of hailing a taxi or hailing a car isn't exactly crazy, isn't exactly a novel idea. It's something that has existed for a long time, as long as taxis have existed, right? But so let's say it's a so-so idea, or a good idea, so we don't badmouth it. But if you look at the execution, like, they created a whole new method for people to actually get cars on demand, rather than having to wait in the street in the sun or in the rain for an empty car to pass by, or having to ask the reception in your building to order a car. I think it was a brilliant execution. So this also, let's say great with brilliant, that's what, 150 million. So again, the number doesn't really mean anything. It's just a nice way to visualize the impact of the importance of the idea versus the real importance of the execution behind it. So the way we see it at No BS, fostering innovation requires some smart execution of the following factors. One is research. You have to really research your market, research who your customers and your users are, what they're doing and what they need and what their motivations are. Researching the market in terms of what already exists, what doesn't exist, what is the market going towards, what are the trends out there. Co-creation in terms of uh, uh, building ideas or developing ideas together with different stakeholders in an organization, that ideas are no longer limited to the design team or to the product team or to the development team, but rather let's involve business, let's involve design and engineering and marketing and sales, and let's bring in people with different perspectives and different backgrounds so we can put the best ideas out there. And then we can also, as equally important, put everybody's concerns and every department's concerns out there. Rapid validation, meaning let's get market feedback as soon as we can. Let's get user feedback or customer feedback as soon as we can. This is very common in our lean methodology and our agile methodology. And of course, iteration, which is let's get this market feedback, let's learn what we can learn from it, and let's improve what we have based on it, based on what our market or our customers or our users want. So as a result, I would say enter the design sprint. A design sprint is one of our, let's say, core offerings at NoBS. It's our bread and butter, so to say. It was created at Google Ventures, and it is a 4-day design thinking process that allows companies to rapidly solve big business challenges, create new products and services, or improve existing ones. So what it does essentially is compress months of work and money into just a few days. Instead of wasting months working on an idea, developing it, designing it, launching it, until we get market feedback, we're only doing that in a couple of days. And it's done as follows. So this is a chart that we're all familiar with in our software and our product development world. And this is our perfect scenario, so to say. In the case there, we start off with an idea. We have an idea for a solution, for a product, for a service. We build it. And then after we build it, we launch it. Then after we launch it, we gather data about it. We gather market feedback about it, customer, user feedback. And then we take all the data and all the learnings that we gathered, and then we feed it back into the idea to refine it and then build a better version or to iterate. So again, this is the perfect world scenario, but as we all know, things are never that perfect. And if we want to be more realistic, things tend to look more like this, that the build phase takes quite a long time. What between meetings and decision making and different stakeholders and different departments coming to agree on building the same thing, and then all the hiccups that we face and the product development process in terms of development, design, testing, all that. And to be fair, this in many cases this also extends into this, meaning the build phase takes even longer. And what that does, it's a sort of a chain reaction in that sense, is that the longer that the building phase takes, the longer we get to launching our product. And then the longer we get to launching our product, the longer we get to get data about it. In many cases, that could be fatal for companies or for startups, in the sense that you might run out of money before you actually understand whether your customers or your users or your market actually even cares about this idea in the first place. So what the design sprint aims to do is cut out the fat, like we like to say, and just focus on the essence. Meaning we have an idea, we want to get market feedback on our idea as soon as possible without having to worry or spend time and money on building it and launching it. No need to do that. Let's try to get feedback on our idea straight away. The cool thing about it is that it combines these 3 different disciplines. One is the scientific method, in the sense that it's rigorous, like we go into details. It's experimental. We set an experiment and we try to, or like we treat it as an experiment in the sense that we have a hypothesis. It's hypothesis driven, and we try to prove this hypothesis and that is what makes up the experiment. It brings in the best of the design process in the sense that it is human-centered, whether internal, so it is centered around different stakeholders and their requirements in the company, and at the same time, of course, around customers and customer needs or user needs. It is creative and it's divergent, meaning that we don't just start with an idea and work on it, but rather we try to explore the challenge as much as we can before we start focusing on one solution idea. And of course, it combines those 2 with agile philosophy that we're all familiar with, meaning it's about continuous improvement, meaning it's about not just building the thing once and going out with it, but rather putting it out there in the market and then improving it by getting constant feedback. It's collaborative. You're having different stakeholders and you're having different professionals from your organizations work on it. And it's responsive to your market and to the company itself, meaning whatever you learn internally and externally from your measurements, from your tests, from all the reports that you get, you will feed those back into the sprint or into the process itself, um, to build a better thing as you go. And the structure for a sprint looks like the following. As we said, it's a 4-day thing. The first day or the first 2 days are workshops with the team, meaning on day one, we work on defining the challenge. We explore the challenge space. We try to understand what it's all about. We look at, or we talk to stakeholders or experts and try to get their best ideas, their concerns, their suggestions. We look at competitors in the market, or maybe even not necessarily competitors, could also be inspirational products and services from completely different industries. And that's one of my favorite parts of this exercise. So for example, when one of the examples that we had, or one of the cases that we had, was for a hospital, and they wanted to try to make their customer experience or their patient experience nicer. Like, none of us really enjoys going to a hospital or spending time in a hospital. So what we did was we started looking at the hotel industry, like the hospitality industry, and take as many learnings as we can from there and see how we can apply those learnings into for hospitals, so to say. And then at the second half of day two, we start producing different solutions. So each person in the room comes up with a different solution without really working with somebody else. So we all get the same ideas, we all get the same input, and then based on that, each person individually works on a solution. Then comes day two, in which we have a whole bunch of solutions. And then the focus of day two is to bring all these solutions into one. So after we had worked separately on day one, we start working in groups on day two, or in one group on day two, to converge all the best ideas, to take up all the best ideas in the room and bring them together into one meaningful solution. And then based on that, or by the end of day two, we would have a prototype defined, not just built yet, but we will know what we are going to be prototyping by creating one storyboard towards the end of the day. That, of course, describes what it's all about, what the solution is all about. On day three, we focus on prototyping. So we design and we build the prototype for the solution based on the storyboard from day two. And this is basically what the whole day is dedicated for. But again, we only spend 1 day to build the prototype, rather than spending 6 or 7 months, or maybe 3 months or 4 months on developing an MVP. This could be click dummies. This could be a PDF. This could be a conversation, dialogue, for example, if it's a service. It's really about wasting as least time as possible, but bringing out the best representation of the solution that you can in the shortest time possible. And then this prototype gets tested on day 4. We test it with 5 potential users. And based on that, we start getting an understanding of whether or not the market cares about this, whether or not the market has any, like what the general feedback in the market is towards this. We look at target customers, target users, we scout them in, and we test this prototype with. And based on that, if we realize that, you know, people seem to like it and the market seems to like it, then we know that we can go ahead with developing it. If we see that there are some mixed feelings, we can take the feedback in, we can take these learnings, loop them into a second sprint or a second week, and iterate on that and build a second prototype that takes into consideration this feedback, and then we test again. And then there's always the case of the test completely failing, of people not liking your product or your service idea, of people telling you, I don't need this, what's the point? Or just generally not getting any positive feedback towards it. And this, of course, could sound scary, or it could sound negative in a sense of, oh, we just did that for nothing. But to think of it from a business perspective, this could be one of the things you might face if you have a bad idea, because within 4 days, you were able to realize that this idea is not going to fly. This idea is not going to be successful. So you might as well cut it now and cut your losses at 4 days, rather than spending months of time and money, which could sum up to hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros, until you realize the same lesson, which is that this idea is not going to work. So you're better off realizing earlier on that let's stop this, let's work on something else, let's figure out another solution, or look at the challenge from a different angle, and waste as little time and money as we can on it before it's too late. And of course, this could be very crucial for startups, more critical for startups than big companies, because startups are operating on limited budgets, of course. So some reasons why design sprints work, or what makes them so effective, is that one, as mentioned earlier, they promote divergent thinking. So divergent thinking is about not starting with one standpoint, or not starting with one idea for a solution and just going ahead with it. And here I can place some blame on our educational systems, is that the way we studied at schools, especially, is that you are given a given. You start with a given, and you just start your problem solving based on it. You do not get to explore the space before you look at different solutions that you want to solve. Divergent thinking promotes exactly that. So it's sort of like outside the box thinking. We start by exploring the challenge, like we said, and then we diverge in our ways. We look at the challenge from different angles. We question the challenge. We don't just start with the problem and go with it. We try to dig deeper. We ask why, and then we ask why, and we ask why 5 times exactly. And by doing so, we would be identifying new opportunities for innovation. We would be understanding the challenge from different angles, which might mean that an early idea for a solution could not sound so interesting anymore, because by thinking outside the box, by looking at different angles for this challenge, we might realize that there's some really interesting potential for solutions from that different angle. I'll try to get that more to more tangibly in a bit. A second reason is that it's promoting meaningful solutions. So through this sprint, we look at competitors, we look at the markets, we see how we can differentiate from them. And at the same time, we try to get market validation as fast as we can, just like we mentioned earlier. It's quite efficient, and it has a very high return on investment. So you're getting high value results in just 4 days. And in many cases, this is saving companies up to 6 months of work and money, which could amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars. In certain cases, you have app MVPs, let's say, that could cost you a couple $100,000, and some of them could go all the way to $500,000 or $600,000. What you're doing here is that instead of having to build the app MVP, you can just build a prototype and get it validated within 4 days at a much, 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 much lower cost. And finally, this is my personal favorite, is that it really promotes culture within the team. It really promotes smart work within the team and communication. So you're basically setting up cross-functional teams to do this. You're bringing in somebody from every relevant department in your company. The way I like to do it in our sprints is that I always try to bring in people from business, so it could be the CEO or the product manager or so, but people from business or from business management, people from product, like I mentioned, with the product manager, people from design, people from engineering, typically one person from each of those. So let's say one person, not rather than people. And very importantly, somebody from sales, somebody from marketing, somebody from customer service, because at the end of the day, these are the functions that are in almost day-to-day interaction with your clients. Salespeople are talking to potential customers. They know what they want, what they're looking for. They know what could sell. Marketing is about putting the message out there, so they also know whether or not this idea aligns with your general company's idea or general company's message. And customer service are your number one, or like the front line of interaction with customers. So they know the pain points quite well. They know what people complain about. They know what doesn't work. And they know what customers would like to have. So that's so valuable. That's such a treasure box, if you ask me, in your organization. So these cross-functional teams, on one hand, they let every person or like every department voice its concerns and voice its opinions about best practices or what could be the best ideas to pursue. But at the same time, with the way the work is being done, is that you have every person working on their own. Nobody is being biased or shamed about their ideas. All the work is done on an individual level, the contribution part. And then all the work is brought together as part of a group, and then the group or the room altogether votes on the best ideas. So you are literally leveraging the best ideas out of each person or each stakeholder in your company, and you're leveraging the best ideas in the room in general. That is priceless, if you ask me. They promote communication. You have like 2 heavy days of teams, like one team collaborating with each other, communicating, moving fast. It's very intense. Everything is time boxed. It's design thinking, basically. And most importantly, alignment. After 2 days of a workshop or 4 days of a workshop, you have different stakeholders from different departments who all are on the same page, who are all share the same understanding, and who all have the same expectation of where they're going next. And this is so priceless in terms of creating the team spirit, of getting people excited. And that is what I have, like, these are some of my biggest learnings from running design sprints, is that you have all these people who in many cases do not meet eye to eye. This creates so much excitement for them that they know what's coming next. They're so excited about it. They're always excited to see what the test results are like and what the next steps means. And you're getting buy-in from different departments in your company, and you're getting them all excited about the future of this product or the service. And this is all being done in a time-boxed manner that allows you to make decisions faster. So this cuts all these long meetings that you always face. This cuts all these long, in many cases, meaningless discussions that just go on and on and on and on, that just waste your time, basically. This is getting everybody to make decisions faster. You might realize later that the decisions were not right, but it has saved you so much time that you can always go back and do the process again, and you will eventually get the right decisions done. So I would like here to jump to, or show quite briefly, like some of those case studies that we have worked on, different companies in Berlin, outside Berlin. First one is Beyond 1435, which is a consortium of some of the biggest transportation and mobility companies in Germany and Europe, including Deutsche Bahn, the German rail station, rail company, sorry, Siemens, as we all know, Bombardier, which is also in rails, SBB, CFF, FFS. These are all the Swiss and the Austrian rail networks. And they all came together with a startup called Xane, that has to do with data sharing on blockchain and machine learning. And they wanted to see, basically the challenge was, how might we shape the future mobility and transportation ecosystem in Europe? So all of these companies have so much, or so many resources when it comes to data and infrastructure relating to transportation and mobility. And if we are to innovate, if we are to create a new innovative ecosystem in innovation, in mobility and transportation, we have to get all these companies to collaborate together. And so we ran a series of design sprints for them, where we had representatives of each of these companies to see how we can leverage each of these companies' resources and knowledge and skills and assets to build something together. And by running these design sprints, we're able to understand how a partnership would look like and what each company could be able to provide, and how each company can still at the same time protect its own assets and its own privacy. Another one would be NiteHero. This is one of my personal favorites. It is, I don't know why it looked like this, but it's a young startup in Berlin that focuses on safety and security against sexual assault and rape. The challenge for us was, how might we combat sexual harassment and assault against women in Berlin? This startup is on a very noble cause. That's why it's one of my favorites. And together we were able to work together, we worked together to develop a concept for an app solution, which allows women primarily, but this could also extend to different groups eventually, different demographics, and even minorities, so to say, to be always safe or to always feel safe on the go in Berlin. This could be at night after leaving a nightclub, or walking in an empty street or so. So we're able to come up with an app concept that lets them know what's around them, find safe spots around them, and if needed, in that one unfortunate case that they feel under threat, they will get support from the police or from private security services within a matter of 1 to 2 minutes. Another one is Delivery Hero, which is the world's largest online food platform. And together we work to solve the challenge of helping restaurants estimate how much time an incoming order would take to be delivered to the customer. So if you place an order on their platform, how can we help restaurants let you know that you will get the food in 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and how can we help them be precise about this kind of estimation? So we work together with different people from operations, from business intelligence, from sales, customer support, as mentioned, the small image here. And of course, we worked together and we included restaurant owners and restaurant staff who use these kind of services and who typically have this kind of job of accepting the order and communicating how long it takes. And together we ran a sprint and we prototyped a solution that of course got tested in the field with real restaurants to help them optimize or to streamline this process. And this came out very positive, and this has already been developed for over a year now, and we have, there are plans of taking this to the next level, but unfortunately I cannot really divulge more details. Another one is a healthcare startup in Berlin that has to do with digestive health, which is a case that's quite highly common among the population. And there is no real cure for, or like one real therapy or cure for digestive health or IBS. So we tried to work together, or we did work together on a solution for a program as part of their app. So they have an app that lets you track the food that you're eating, the symptoms that you feel, the pain, the nausea, the bloating, for example, and try by leveraging all these data points to give you patterns about what works best for you when it comes to food, what works best for you, or like when do you feel best, what kind of foods or activities should you avoid. And then eventually we also worked on a couple of other design sprints to create a program, sort of like an educational program or therapy program that just went live in mid-March. I'm not exactly sure which day you will see this presentation, so I wouldn't say a week ago, but it is still relatively fresh. And this program involves educational content, therapeutic content, medication tracking, and then of course, one-to-one therapy sessions with certified nutritionists and health professionals. This app is, of course, available for download. I'm happy to discuss this in more detail if you have questions about it after this presentation. And one of our latest projects is for the United Nations Global Compact, and this is for one of I'll talk about this in a second. The challenge is helping large organizations become more sustainable. So on one hand, either finding opportunities for creating new sustainable innovations, or on the second hand, for optimizing the processes that they have to become more innovative and to become more sustainable. This is one big factor behind why I started NoBS, is that, as mentioned earlier, we want to focus on solving real challenges that our world is facing. And apart from the work on digital services and work on the consumer kind of services that we do for companies and for organizations, a huge focus for us is sustainability. And so we have come up with a process with, so we are collaborating with another organization called 2030 Cabinet in Berlin that is focused on the sustainable development goals of the United Nations and on sustainability as a topic. And we've come up together with a process for sustainable innovation. So it's another kind of workshop that we offer companies to help them become more sustainable in the short term, and to identify opportunities for innovation that will be sustainable, and to optimize the processes altogether. Unfortunately, I cannot divulge more details about this particular project, but again, open to talk about the topic in general or about sustainable innovation in general. This is something we're completely excited about, and we're pretty sure it's gonna be quite big in the industry soon, and we have the infrastructure for it, and we have the talent and the knowledge for it, and we're just giving it out basically. So yeah, if you would like to see more details about these case studies or about other case studies, we do share them regularly on our Instagram or LinkedIn pages. Of course, I can't share all the stories here or like all the processes, but you will find them there, and you will find some more, of course. And if you would like to know more about a particular one, please feel free to reach out to me on one of our channels, as mentioned before. Yeah, so we're getting towards the end, I guess. So some nice takeaways from this is to always remember that never undermine the value of execution. If you ask me, it's more important than ideas. Ideas are great, but without executions, ideas will remain abstract. Execution is where the value is. Execution is where the money is. 2, getting started is more important than being right. You will never get started if you're waiting to perfect your idea or your solution. Whatever you have, get started with it, and you will improve as you go, or you will improve it as you go. Tangible is more important than discussion. This is very important for design thinking and design sprints, is that instead of communicating ideas with one another, let's make them tangible. Let's visualize them. Let me show you the idea that I have in mind rather than just discussing it. This is the only way that you can make sure that people understand what you're talking about. Don't count on just a conversation. Sketch your idea, draw it, prototype it. This is why we prototype our solutions. The best way to get feedback on your idea is by making it visible, by making sure that people understand what you're saying. Do not rely on creativity. It's not just about being creative, having nice ideas, thinking about something, having that eureka moment. It's really about understanding what's missing in the market, looking at what people are, or what kind of problems or challenges people are facing, and ideating solutions out of those. And finally, it's always funny having to move this up and down. Finally, you have to view challenges as opportunities. You know, our world is full of challenges. Our world is full of issues that we need to be dealing with. Coronavirus is the biggest thing right now, but hopefully soon when we tackle it, there are still so many challenges out there, from climate change to cancer to automation, meaning people losing their jobs and how society will have to adapt to that. The challenges are endless. In our world, in our Arab world, in the Middle East, maybe in particular, we have more challenges than other parts of the world. And that has historically, you know, depressed us as a people, or it has put us down and made us feel that we are living in a tough place. But if we look at things optimistically, let's think of these challenges as opportunities. Let's think of these as problems that are just waiting to be solved, and let's start ideating solutions for them. And closing, this is one of my favorite quotes, is that actually I wrote this myself. So it's not really a quote, it's just something I like to say, is that it is our duty as designers to put technology in the back seat and to build humane products and services. You know, technology is not designed to take over our lives. It is supposed to assist us. It is supposed to augment it, to make our life easier, to add value to our lives, and not to enslave us as people. With that, I would like to thank you for the time, and I would like to, no, I look orange now. I would like to thank you for the time and for the attention. I apologize in advance for any, you know, technical issues that you might have witnessed here between moving small pictures of myself and handling two screens at once. I'm more than happy to accept all your questions and start any conversation you might have. I would have loved to do this in person. I hope I would get to meet everyone at some point. But until then, you can reach out to me either on my private channel, Hany Rizk _ or NoBS Studio. Follow us. I would totally appreciate your support on the NoBS Studio pages. And really check out our case studies. If you have questions, if you have suggestions, if you have ideas for collaboration, especially for solving problems in the Arab world, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in the Middle East in general, and North Africa, I would be more than delighted and thrilled to talk and hopefully bring about some much needed positive change. Thank you so much for following this, and I hope you have a great day and you enjoy the rest of the talks. Ciao.